Clint Eastwood, Hollywood's last outlaw, walks onto the Jimmy Kimmel stage to promote his new film. What starts as a routine interview quickly spirals into a fiery clash that ends with him getting thrown out of the studio. How did a simple, talk show segment turn into chaos? The energy in the Jimmy Kimmel live studio is buzzing. Lights are glaring. The crowd is humming with anticipation. Clint Eastwood, well into his 90s, is the night's main attraction. His presence alone quiets the room. He's here to talk about his latest project, a stark drama about a rancher standing against a corporate land grab. It's a story that mirrors the man himself. The squint, the gravelly drawl, they're still sharp as ever. But Clint isn't here for laughs or scripted banter. He agreed to this appearance for one reason only, to promote his film. Anything else, and he's not playing. Backstage, tension brews. Maggie, Clint's no-nonsense longtime assistant, feels it immediately. She had already warned the producers not to make him into a circus act. They nodded politely, but their eyes told a different story, one scheming for a viral moment. Maybe they thought Clint would play along, wear a prop, crack a joke. Maggie knows better. Clint doesn't play. Not for studios, not for anyone. And they're about to learn that the hard way. In the green room, Clint nurses a black coffee, watching the monitor as Jimmy Kimmel kicks off the show. Jimmy's in his usual rhythm, delivering a sharp monologue about the latest celebrity headlines. The audience roars. Clint doesn't react. His fingers tap lightly on the armrest. Maggie notices. That small, subtle rhythm. He's sizing things up, just like a gunfighter before a draw. She leans to a stagehand, murmurs that they're going to try something. He shrugs, oblivious. The stage manager signals. Clint rises, smooths his jacket, and walks alone to the curtain. No fuss, no entourage. Jimmy's still riffing on some pop star's meltdown when he shifts gears and builds the moment. The man, the myth, Clint Eastwood. The band hits a gritty riff. The crowd explodes. Clint steps out, slow and deliberate, like he owns the room. He grips Jimmy's hand, brief and iron, and takes his seat. The cheers fade. The tension doesn't. Jimmy begins safely enough. Questions about the film, themes of loyalty, and fighting for what matters. Clint answers with the weight of conviction. His voice is rough but steady, and the audience leans in, hanging on every word. But Jimmy's chasing something lighter, something trending. He tosses out a joke about Clint's cowboy days, asking if he still rides horses. Clint's reply is short, clipped. It gets a laugh, but there's a sharpness to it. A warning. Jimmy doesn't catch it. Trying to regain momentum, he brings up an old story, some bar fight from the set of an old Western. He's hoping for a laugh, a bit of nostalgia. Clint's eyes narrow, his jaw tightens. Didn't happen, he says flatly. The studio goes still. A mix of gasps and awkward laughter ripple through the crowd. Jimmy tries to pivot, reaching, for a bit, the cowboy hat prop. He holds it up like it's all in good fun. Come on, Clint, one quick shot for the fans. The audience claps, urging it on. But Clint doesn't move. His stare could slice steel. Put that away, he says. Quiet, but clear. The room freezes. Jimmy's smile falters. Maggie, watching from the wings, shakes her head. She knows what's coming. The tension in the studio is now a thundercloud, ready to break. Jimmy tries to laugh it off, but the chuckle is thin, forced. All right, no hats tonight, he says, tossing the prop onto the desk like it's no big deal. But the air in the studio has shifted. The earlier cheers have faded into a low murmur. Clint Eastwood hasn't moved an inch. His eyes are locked on Jimmy, unblinking, like he's staring down a rattlesnake. The tension is thick, the kind that makes the hairs on your arms rise. Backstage, Maggie's hands are clenched tight. She leans toward the stage manager, her voice sharp. Told you not to push him. The stage manager, sweating now, signals the control booth to cut to commercial. But the director hesitates. The drama is hot, the ratings climbing. They're not ready to pull the plug. Jimmy senses he's losing control, He shifts in his chair, trying to steer the moment back to safe ground. "So let's talk more about the film," he says, his voice a little too cheerful, like he's hoping to hit reset. He asks about the inspiration behind the rancher's story. Clint leans forward, resting his hands on his knees, and begins to speak, but it's not the answer Jimmy expected. "It's about people who don't roll over," Clint says, his voice low and deliberate. "Folks who fight when the world tries to take what's theirs. Not about playing dress-up for laughs." The words hit hard. A few audience members gasp. Some clap. Jimmy's smile tightens, fingers tapping the desk in a steady beat. Trying to move things along, Jimmy asks about the film's production. But Clint cuts in unprompted, his voice sharper now. "You know, I came here to talk about something real," he says, his eyes sweeping over the set, the lights, the audience. "Not to be some sideshow for your ratings." The crowd shifts again. Some cheer, others murmur, unsure if it's real or part of the act. Jimmy's thrown. His usual rhythm falters. He glances toward the floor producer, who's already signaling to wrap it up. But Clint's not done. "I've been in this game longer than you've been alive," he says, steady but with heat beneath every word. "I don't need to play your games to sell a story." The audience is split now, some shouting support, others heckling, thinking, maybe this is all a bit. Jimmy leans in, trying to take control. "Hey, we're just having fun here, Clint. No need to get heated," he says, but the words don't land. He tries another angle, asking about Clint's directing style, hoping flattery might cool things down. Clint stares at him. "Fun," he says, disdain dripping from the word. "You call this fun? Parading people out here to make them look foolish?" He gestures around at the set, the lights, the cameras. The crowd is buzzing again, louder now, feeding off the raw energy in the room. Backstage, the producers are panicking. The director barks orders into a headset, prepping for a hard cut to commercial, but someone higher up wants the fireworks to continue. Ratings are peaking. Maggie's pacing, muttering under her breath. She sees Clint on the monitor, face like stone, and knows he won't back down. On stage, Jimmy's scrambling. His jokes are falling flat. He tries to lighten the mood, asks Clint about his favorite old role, but Clint interrupts again. "You don't get it," he says, his voice rising just enough to command the room. "This isn't about me. It's about respect, for the work, for the people watching." That hits. The crowd reacts, some standing, clapping, others booing. The room's a powder keg, ready to blow. Jimmy's had enough. He leans forward, his tone harder now. The friendly mask slips. "Look, Clint, we're just trying to give the fans what they want," he says, gesturing to the audience. "They love you. They want to see the legend." "It's a mistake." Clint's eyes flash. He leans in, his voice low but every syllable razor sharp. "They don't want a clown. They want the truth." For a second, the studio is silent. The kind of silence that feels like everything's holding its breath. Then someone shouts from the back, too garbled to make out, but it shatters the moment. Jimmy jumps on it, clapping his hands. "All right, we'll take a quick break, folks," Coide, he says, forcing a smile, trying to laugh it off again. The band kicks in, loud and brassy, trying to drown out the tension, but it's not working. Clint still hasn't moved, his eyes fixed on Jimmy. The crowd's on edge, some chanting Clint's name, others calling for Jimmy to fight back. Jimmy's still on his feet, smiling stiffly, clapping like nothing's wrong. But his eyes keep darting to the floor producer, who's waving frantically to cut. The cameras are still rolling. Every second of this train wreck captured live. Clint, unmoving. Jimmy, barely holding it together. And the studio? A live wire, ready to snap. His stare is locked on Jimmy, a silent challenge louder than the blaring music. Backstage, Maggie mutters curses under her breath, eyes glued to the monitor. She knows Clint isn't done. In the control booth, the director's torn. Ratings are skyrocketing, but the segment's slipping out of control fast. As the band winds down, Jimmy eases back into his chair. He leans toward Clint, voice low, off mic, but the front rows can still catch pieces. "Let's just cool it, all right? We'll talk about the movie," he says, trying to patch the wreckage. Clint doesn't blink. "You had your chance," he says, voice cold, sharp as glass, just loud enough for the front row to hear. A ripple moves through the audience. Phones are out recording. The moment's already viral. Jimmy's jaw clenches. He's not used to being pushed, especially not here, not on his own stage. He scans the audience, trying to read them, and decides to lean into the crowd. "Folks, we love Clint, right?" he says, raising his hands like a ringmaster calling for applause. A smattering of claps follows, but it's weak. The crowd is too split, too tense to rally. Clint leans back, arms crossed, face unreadable. He's not playing for cheers. He's here to make a point. Near the wings, the stage manager gives Jimmy the rap signal, but Jimmy's not ready to tap out. He reaches for a cue card, trying to salvage the show. "Tell us about the cast, yourself." Direction was incredible. Clint cuts him off before he can finish. "You're not listening," he says, calm but commanding. His voice carries, silencing the murmurs. "This isn't about the movie anymore. It's about you thinking you can turn me into a prop for your show." The audience reacts like it's been slapped. Gasps, shouts. "Tell him, Clint," from the back, mixed with boos. The line has been drawn. Jimmy's grin is gone. His face is flushed now. He's handled tough interviews before, but this is different. This is personal. This is Clint Eastwood calling him out in front of millions. He tries a weak laugh, but it falls flat. "Come on, man. It's just TV," he says, hands raised, appealing to the room. "We're all here to have a good time." Clint shakes his head slowly. "Not me," he says. "I came to talk about something that matters. You turned it into a circus." The words land like a punch. The crowd explodes, half cheering, half jeering. The set feels like it's vibrating with tension. Backstage, Maggie nods to herself, a grim sort of satisfaction in her eyes. She's seen Clint dismantle bigger egos than this. The director finally gives the cue. Cut to commercial. Monitors switch to ads. The band falls silent. The house lights dim slightly, signaling a pause. But Clint? He's still sitting there, unmoved, like a monument carved from defiance. Jimmy stands, whispering furiously to the floor producer, his gestures sharp and frustrated. The audience is restless now, some chanting Clint's name, others arguing. In their seats. Security edges toward the stage, two burly men in black, eyes fixed on Clint, but they hesitate. They know better. Maggie steps forward, catching the stage manager's arm. "Don't even think about touching him," she says, voice low but steely. The stage manager nods, backing off, but the pressure in the room keeps climbing. During the break, producers are huddled, voices raised, trying to figure out how to salvage the rest of the show. Jimmy's pacing by the desk, running a hand through his hair, muttering to himself. He knows he's losing. He just doesn't know how to turn it around. Clint, meanwhile, is calm. A stagehand handed him a bottle of water, and he sips it slowly, scanning the crowd like he's reading each person one by one. A few fans up front lean in, trying to catch his eye. One yells, "You're the man, Clint." He nods slightly. No more. The break is nearly over. The director's made a call. Let Clint stay, but Jimmy needs to take control. The band cues up. The countdown begins. The cameras roll again. The lights blaze back to full brightness. The band hits its final notes as the Jimmy Kimmel live. Audience quiets, the murmur settling into a tense hum. Jimmy slides back into his chair, smile forced but professional. He looks composed, but his eyes betray the nerves, like a fighter stepping back into the ring after taking a beating. Clint hasn't moved. His posture hasn't changed. His gaze isn't even on Jimmy anymore. It's fixed somewhere past him, like the host isn't even there. The crowd is buzzing again. Some chant Clint's name. Others wait for Jimmy to land a counterpunch. Backstage, Maggie watches from the shadows, arms crossed. There's pride on her face and worry. The producers are tight-lipped. The director's voice crackles through the headset. "Keep it tight, Jimmy. Don't let him run the show." But Clint Eastwood didn't come to be managed, and round two is about to begin. Jimmy leans forward, clapping once. Sharp, commanding, trying to pull the energy back into his grip. "We're back with the one and only Clint Eastwood," he says, voice lighter than before, a smile stretched over tension. He's trying to reset the tone, cool things off. He jumps straight into a question about the film's cinematography, looking for safe ground, hoping Clint will go deep on something technical, something neutral. Clint obliges at first. His voice is even as he talks about the stark visuals, the way the land becomes a character of its own. But then, without warning, he shifts. "You know what's wrong with places like this?" he says, gesturing broadly to the glitzy set. "You think it's all about flash, about noise, you forget what's real." The crowd stirs. Some clap. Others shift in their seats, uncomfortable. Jimmy's jaw tightens just slightly. Irritation flickers in his eyes, but he keeps it under wraps, nodding like he's on the same page. "Fair enough," he says, leaning back, playing the gracious host. "But this is entertainment, right? People want a show." He turns to the audience, fishing for a reaction. There's a scattered mix, cheers, a few boos. The room is still on edge. Clint doesn't blink. "They want honesty," he says, his voice slicing through the din. "Not some polished lie you spoon-feed them just to keep them clapping." The line hits hard. The crowd erupts, cheers, shouts, some pushing back. Jimmy's smile falters. His fingers curl around the edge of the desk. He can feel the room tilting away from him. The floor producer signals frantically to pivot, but Jimmy's pride is tangled in now. He leans forward, voice tightening. "Look, Clint, you're a legend. Nobody's arguing that. But this is my stage, and we've got a show to run. It's a challenge. Direct." The crowd feels it, energy spiking like an exposed wire. Clint's eyes narrow, not much, but enough to shift the gravity in the room. "Your stage," he says, calm but pointed. "I'm here because I chose to be, not to dance for you." The audience explodes. Some are on their feet chanting Clint's name. Others shout for Jimmy to stand his ground. Backstage, Maggie mutters, "Here we go," shaking her head, watching. The fuse burned down. Security inches closer, twitchy but hesitant. They know one wrong move turns this into headlines. Jimmy's had enough. He breaks the cardinal rule. He stands. "You want to talk respect?" He snaps, pointing at Clint. "How about respecting the people who invited you here?" His voice is loud now. No more jokes. No more smiles. The audience surges, cheers, boos, raw chaos. And then Clint rises. Slow, intentional, towering. His presence shifts the atmosphere. The set feels suddenly too small. He doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't have to. "Respect's earned," he says, stepping in just close enough. "Not bought with lights and applause." The line detonates. The crowd roars, shaking the studio walls. The director is screaming to cut. Cut to black, cut to commercial. But the cameras are still rolling, defiant, capturing every electric second. Jimmy's show is no longer his. The Jimmy Kimmel live studio has become a battleground. Clint Eastwood stands inches from Jimmy Kimmel, the air between them humming with unspoken tension. Clint's words still hang in the air like smoke. "Respect's earned, not bought with lights and applause." The audience feeds on it, charged by the confrontation. Jimmy's face burns red, fists clenched, caught between blowing up and salvaging what's left. The cameras keep rolling against orders, and somewhere backstage someone whispers, "This is gonna be everywhere by morning." Maggie's eyes are locked on Clint, her jaw tight, ready to move if things go 1 inch further off the rails. At the edge of the stage, 2 security guards exchange uneasy glances, unsure what to do when the man in question is Clint Eastwood. Jimmy moves first, breaking the standoff with a step back and a laugh that lands somewhere between a cough and a retreat. "All right, Clint, you've made your point," he says, voice thin, trying to steer the moment back under his control. He throws a hand toward the audience, fishing for applause. "Let's give it up for Clint Eastwood, folks." A smattering of claps follow, but they're buried beneath the low rumble of voices. Too much tension still hanging in the air. Clint doesn't acknowledge any of it. His gaze is fixed on Jimmy, unreadable, like he's still deciding if he's done. Backstage, the floor producer is drenched in sweat, signaling frantically to security. "Get him off now," he hisses. One of the guards hesitantly steps forward, raising a hand. "Sir, let's take a walk," he says gently, like talking down a wild animal. Clint turns to him, slowly. Their eyes meet, and for a heartbeat, the whole set feels frozen. "Don't," Clint says. Not loud, not angry, but firm. A command. The guard halts immediately, hands raised, backing away. Maggie bursts through the side curtain, her voice slicing through the noise. "He's leaving when he's ready," she snaps, her glare drilling into the producer. But Clint lifts a hand, silencing even her. He looks at Jimmy, then scans the audience, his face still hard to read. "I said what I came to say," he tells. "Them all. Final." And with that, he turns and walks off the stage. No drama. Just deliberate steps, a slow fade into the wings as the audience explodes, cheers, shouts, murmurs. Jimmy stands frozen, alone in the spotlight. The band scrambles to play something, anything, to fill the silence. Jimmy forces a grin, waving awkwardly to the crowd. "Well, that was something, huh?" A ripple of laughter answers him, but it's uneven, uncertain. The energy in the room is shattered. Backstage, chaos reigns. Producers bark orders. The director yells about damage control. Maggie follows Clint to the green room where he calmly grabs his coat. He's already somewhere else in his mind. "Told him not to push you?" she mutters. Clint gives a slow nod. Nothing more. No victory lap. No gloating. Just done. Outside, the internet is on fire. Clips of the confrontation spreading like a brush fire. Debates erupting. Was Clint a hero or a prima donna? Jimmy stumbles through the final segment, visibly off balance. Whatever charm he usually commands, it's dulled now. The story of the night isn't the guest lineup or the laughs. It's Clint Eastwood, the man who came, spoke his truth, and walked out without playing the game. As Clint steps into the night, leaving the bright lights behind, the message is clear. He didn't just exit a stage. He drew a line, and Hollywood won't forget it anytime soon. That's the story, folks. What a wild ride. If you like this breakdown, hit subscribe and join a community that craves the real stuff. Drop a comment. Where are you tuning in from? LA? Tokyo? Somewhere off the grid? Tell me what you think. Was Clint right to stand his ground? Or did he go too far, like the video? Share it with your crew, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay curious. Stay real.